everyone, welcome to the BPD Bunch. I'm your host Xannie, and today I'm here with Madhurima, Hakcha, and Jack. We're continuing our conversation from Wednesday about BPD and loneliness. This topic is brought to you by our BPD besties over on Patreon. They vote once a season on an episode topic, and they're invited to watch us live behind the scenes while we're filming and ask us their questions. If you're interested in signing up for our BPD besties or other Patreon tiers, the link is in the description down below. We're really excited to continue this topic today. If this or other BPD-related topics interest you, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you do not miss anything. Today's question is one from one of our patrons. How do you sit with yourself when your brain says you don't matter? I tend to reach out texting to friends to counteract that voice, but I know I need to learn how to self-soothe.
Ooh, that's a hard one because I do that a lot. If I sit too long by myself, my brain tends to start attacking me. I just constantly have to remind myself that I am a legendary individual. Like that's the only way to interact. Like your brain knows the best ways to attack you because it's your brain, it's your mind. It knows you better than you ever will know yourself, honestly. And the only way to interact is by just constantly reminding yourself that you were born, that you're here. You were the one that made that race, that most famous race that we all went through. You're the one who made it, and you're here. We went through everything you went through, and you survived. You had your ups and your downs. You fell down. You still back up. You made it. So no matter what your mind tells yourself, you're a legendary. You're epic. You're the hero of your story. Because we're all living our own stories, and you're your hero. So no matter what your brain says, I'm Superman. You're Superman. We're all Superman. So that's what I do, honestly.
You know, that reminds me of something that Solange, another one of our cast members, says. So she says, I deserve to live because I am alive. I think a lot of the times, like the loneliness and the suicidal ideation can be very much hand in hand, because when you feel like you don't matter, it's not truly logical, but in our minds, it feels like the logical next step is like, well, then why even be here, right? I really like what you said about sort of building yourself up, and you're kind of laughing as you say it, but I do think, you know, as hokey as they are sometimes, like affirmations can be really helpful. And so much great advice from other cast members. Like I love how Georgette frames things, where she'll say, she will do like, what if? Like, what if I'm a good person? What if I am strong? What if I am beautiful? What if I deserve help? Whatever. Instead of saying, like, I do. Because I know that for a lot of us, especially when you're in that really dark place, it feels like, oh, if I tell myself I'm Superman, you know, like Jack says, it's like it feels sometimes like you're lying to yourself. So I really love rephrasing the what if. You know, there have been moments where I'm just having a really bad day, whether I'm feeling lonely or just having a hard moment, and my husband has been like, all right, you're gonna go in the bathroom and say 3 nice things to yourself in the mirror. So I think the affirmations are helpful. And I also think in terms of, you know, sitting with yourself, it's helped me to become friends with myself. And that was such a weird foreign concept at first. Like, oh, I can be friends with myself. But yeah, like working on having a relationship with myself means that, sure, like I am better now at reaching out to people and telling myself that it's okay for me to reach out for help and that I'm a worthwhile person. Like that helps me do that. But I think that like part of the question was, you know, the self-soothing aspect, like how, and my interpretation of that is, you know, people aren't available all the time, right? What do you do in those moments? And in those moments, for me, it's really working on having a good relationship with myself, being able to do things alone and soothe myself. You know, it's kind of like hanging out with a friend. I can't do it all the time infinitely. I'm too much of an extrovert for that. But
Yeah, you have to be friends with yourself, otherwise you can't survive. It go you how you expect to be a friend to connect with other people who can't be friends with yourselves.
what's so interesting, because like a lot of the relationship skills that people learn for relationships with other people, you can actually apply to yourself as well. Realizing that, like, oh, Like there is an internal relationship that the parts of me have with each other, and I can actually work on that. Like that was a revolutionary idea. I was like, "What? I can have a good relationship with myself. I mean, I don't just have to feel like I don't exist or am lonely infinitely if people aren't looking at me. What? That's a thing."
Yeah, I definitely like relate a lot to what Danny said because I think one of my first exercises when I got into like DBT was when my therapist asked me like whenever you're like having a breakdown or whenever you're like going into a spiral, why don't you treat yourself like you would treat a friend? Like, imagine whatever your mind is saying to you is like, make up a person, like, give it a name, and imagine that that person is saying the same things to you. So, how would you respond to that? And, like, so that is one exercise that really helped me. Like, when I was in the peak of my self loathing, where I constantly used to feel like, I don't matter, and like, what's the point? And like, I'm never gonna get better anyway. I what I use is that I made up like this version of myself, and I used to call it by the names that my mom and dad calls me, like it's a pet name. And I just had this conversation in my head that this person is saying, telling me that I don't matter. So what do I tell her? Like, how do I soothe her? And that is something that helped me like build this relationship with myself and also be kinder to myself, because I used to be so self-critical, but that was something that was entirely directed inwards. I mean, I used to be so less judgmental towards other people, but so much judgmental towards myself. So it really helped me to think of myself as a third person, or like as someone who is coming to me for help, because like I talked about this in the empathy episode, that I used to feel really great about myself when I was able to show like I am being a good empath. So if I'm turning that empathy onto myself, it's helping me feel good, and it's also helping me calm my own mind. It's helping me like, settle for at least that moment till I can go and reach out to somebody who can help me. And if like I'm too like physically strung out for that, like I'm too anxious or I don't have the space to do all of that, I just practice mindfulness. And it was not easy at first because it takes a lot of time, but it just like once you start like getting like your grip on mindfulness, it's really helpful. It's helped me out a lot, because you learn to like see thoughts as passing thoughts and not anything more than that. So you feel like I have this thought that I don't matter, and I can just observe that thought, and I can just see it. Like I don't have to be judgmental about it. I can just observe it, and I can come back to my senses. I can like focus on my breathing, or I can focus on like, you know, like I can do the ice water thing, or I can have my like comfort kit with me and like use the five senses technique. So that helps me ground me so that I don't get lost in my head. So that's how I currently deal with it. Got it? Yeah.
For me, I'm not like quote unquote friends with myself. I don't think that I'm there yet. So I would say that my advice is a little bit different. When I was an inpatient and we did have to do like things like mindfulness and things like that, um, I didn't have the same kind of like affirmations and mantras that like other people had, right? Like it was very different. There's a certain degree of like suffering that I realize I'm comfortable with. And I've kind of learned to be like, well, that's enough. Like, that's enough suffering for the day. But also, part of it is I'm not going to make myself suffer more than a certain amount just because it's like, not that I don't deserve it, but it's like I also have this responsibility to myself, whether I like it or not. And the reality is, like, whatever it is that keeps you alive, right? That's different for everyone, but it's like, I have school tomorrow. I have to feed my cats in the morning. Like, I have a responsibility to take care of my body and take care of myself, whatever that looks like in the moment. And at the end of the day, I am alive. I'm here. Maybe I do want to suffer, but there has to be like a limit. There has to be a stopping point, or it's just going to get out of control. So for me, it's very big, like, to me to find distractions, even if it's like playing video games, even if it's just taking something like cold and like putting it on myself and just not thinking at all. Like, I have to have that strong limit with myself. Like, it's my responsibility to take care of myself. And a part of it is just like, I don't want anyone else to be part of this. Like, I don't want anyone to have to take care of me at the end of the day. Like, in these situations, it's really difficult. So I have to, put on my big girl pants and be like, okay, that's enough crying. That's enough of that. We're going to go eat something now. We're going to go drink some water now, and just do like the very bare necessities to like get my body self-regulated, even if my mind isn't, and get back to that place where I can think clearly. And then maybe I'll take the day for myself, but I have to eventually, of course, like come back to it. But that's usually never the same day. And that's why I feel therapy is so important for that aspect for me. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. We hope you got a nugget of wisdom to take with you on your journey. Thank you again to our BPD besties for voting for this topic. Information on our Patreon is in the link down below. Sunday, we've got a brunch episode coming out, and then next Wednesday, we have our last discussion topic for the season. If you cannot wait until then, it is already up on our Patreon for our BPD buddies and BPD besties. Link down below. Check it out, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.